Hello, welcome everyone. I hope everyone's hearing me. So hello, my name's Eva, and I am putting together really a movement, an opportunity, a resource to share with everyone about, what they can do to prepare as they launch into their career or changing careers. Hence, I came together and brought, this concept of like developing, steps and strategies to really build, your awesome career out there. So thank you all so much for joining me. I really appreciate that. So good morning for folks or folks catching me on the live stream or, the replay. So thank you all so much for coming to hang out with me. Really appreciate that. I want to quickly jump in over and share with y'all. I know that was a little bit, we're doing some little tech, testing earlier. So I appreciate everyone's patience. For really be able to share with you all about, something that I thought that was really helpful to get people thinking about, what do you want to do, with your career? What do you want to, the steps and strategies to do that? And so, oops. Wrong screen share, my bad. I wanted to share with y'all about, some of those steps early on. And so I came together and put together a presentation really about, how to write an effective resume. And the reason why this is probably one of the first steps that many people struggle with is because they don't know how to write a resume. So I thought I'd give it a try. If you don't hear me, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to share, stop, answer questions. So again, how are folks doing? How are you all? Hope you're all well. I'm wondering for folks, if you're coming here and you're trying to learn how to write a resume, really quick, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to writing a resume? What tends to work for you or what tends to be a challenge? And I'm curious, Khalil is saying, we could hear you all too well. Oh, thank you so much. I can lower it a tad bit. I hope that helps. If that helps, give me a thumbs up. If it's too low, let me know. I'm happy to adjust the volume. Sometimes the tech is too good where the volume is just too outstanding. So I appreciate that so much. Everything, as isn't everything works or everything's too loud. Let me know. I also have a little, it's been a bit chilly this morning, so I have a little tiny heater running in my foot. So if that's picking up, let me know too. I'm happy to turn that off. Hi, welcome, Kay. Kay says that, like what to keep. No, there's so much I want to keep. Mine is 2 pages. Yes, and I'm happy to share about some of the general guidance about a one-page version of resume or a two-page version of resume, right? Definitely, that really is something that can be challenging, right? If you're trying to figure out what do I put? That's the most important piece. Absolutely. All right, awesome. Sounds good. It sounds like everything sounds good now. So we're going to just jump forward and keep moving through. All right. So, when it comes to resume, right, one of the first things people think about is often formatting, right? And I tell folks, you don't want to really focus on that. And that's because formatting is not going to help you. It's like the last things you want to do. What we're going to go over today is essentially the breakdown of it, right? The art of writing the resume, right? Which is like the content. Content is the most important piece, followed by then, those skill set of your experiences, and then ultimately get to the science of it, which is like the formatting, the headings, right? The order of how it looks and feels, right? But when you are writing your resume, you want to help people understand who you are, because this is who you are in a quick glance, right? Your accomplishments, things you've done, your skills, your abilities, your knowledge, right? And your goal as a writer of your resume is to make it so easy that they can understand, so that they can follow along. Otherwise, I tell folks, you lose the hiring manager's attention because it gets difficult to read, it gets hard to understand. And so your goal is just to really make it so easy to understand. So the other piece, again, really quick from some folks, is understanding like what is a resume, right? What is it? What is it not? And so a resume really, again, it's a summary of your skills, knowledge, and abilities. So I always like to remind folks like KSA for short, knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? That demonstrates, in the past or currently you're working on. It's essentially your marketing document, right? It helps market you to people out there, your current networks and your future bosses about who you are, right? The goal of the resume is to get you to the interview. And that includes, the cover letter. How you perform in the interview determines whether or not they offer you the job. So again, the resume is not just for today's job, right, or tomorrow's job, but it's also to help people in your network, the people you know, right, your future references or your current references, understand, again, who are you? What have you been up to, right? What are your skills and abilities? And I think that would help people understand, again, like what are your goals? Where are you hoping to go into? What have you developed over time, right? What makes you the expert in your field or, again, you're aspiring towards? Quick pro tip for many folks, right? You're going to probably be writing lots of resume in your lifetime. And sometimes it's hard to rewrite every time, and it's actually not very efficient that way. So I tell folks, make a master resume, right? Call it your name and then whatever year, master resume. And then what you want to do is put everything that you've been doing, right, that demonstrate, again, knowledge, skills, and ability. Call it the master resume. And then you start crafting the one-page version resumes from that master resume to related job, skills, and experience. Because remember, every job that you apply to is not the same job. It's a different job. And what you want to do is tailor your resume, right, for that specific job. That includes the cover letter. I won't go into cover letter today, but what is it? You want to start tailoring it. If you send out 20 resumes, and I've seen people send out like, in a week, they'll send out 20, in some cases like more than that, right? A week to employers submitting applications. And what happens is that they're sending off oftentimes is quantity, right, of resume versus quality of resume. And if you're sending out 15 to 20 applications a week and you're not getting callbacks for interview, right, it's very normal to hear no's, right? Like, no, we're not taking any, or not even anything from employers, right? You don't hear anything back. It's probably because of your resume, because oftentimes what I find is that people are writing it very generic. It sounds very generic, meaning it sounds like anyone out there. And they're not interested in anyone out there. They're interested in a superstar. And you have to demonstrate that you are the superstar. So again, you want to tailor it. You want to make sure that you have different resumes for different interests that you have, right? And again, you want to really be able to tailor it. So what are the essentials of a resume, right? What do I need to incorporate at the bare minimum? I tell folks, you have to have, right, your name and contact, right? Your education, experience, or certification, right, if needed. Those are going to be the bare bone essentials. But optional categories are going to be, I tell folks, you should start to include them because, again, it helps the reader understand what else do you have to offer, right? So for some folks out there, either objective or summary, skills, projects, right, leadership, activities, affiliations, community service, right, voluntary work, publication, research, a little bit more further for academia folks, right? But you can include any of these, and that is okay as well. And so there's no right or wrong, but it's really, again, trying to see what do I want my reader, right, to read, to understand about my knowledge, skills, and ability by the time they reach 2/3 of the page down, right? What do they need to know? So you want to start thinking about other categories that you haven't included. So essentially, this is sort of the process, right? You want to do 2 drafts, write-ups. The first draft is really going to focus on content. Content matters in formatting, right? So reflect and write down, I tell folks, ideas, examples of your current and past experiences, right? For folks who, if you've been working, you usually probably want to aim for, if you're a young professional, probably the last 5 years, right? But typically in the last 10 years, right? What have you been up to since you were an adult, right? So you want to start writing a strong accomplishment statements, and we'll break down what that means and looks like a little bit later. Again, demonstrating your success. Your resume, think of it as, again, your brag sheet. This is the sheet that tells people, what are you good at? What do you know how to do, right? And then again, you want to start weaving transferable skills throughout your resume. So that way people understand, what did it look like, right? How did you do it? for what, and what was the skill you were weaving through it. And of course, lastly, once you have good content done, then you want to start formatting. That's the, the look and the feel of it, right? That's the part that goes back to, is it 1 page or is it 2 page, right? And that's when you want to start, really aiming for like those margins, right? Kind of what do I put? How far do I go out, right? My white spaces, punctuation, right? Grammar, font, and we'll go over that a little bit as well. So if you're updating your resume, maybe you're a professional who's been out there for a while, right? And you're like, oh, I haven't rewritten my resume for a while, or I need to update it, right? Again, going over, still the same rules apply. It's content matters versus format. So in the next piece here, so the first thing, right, I tell folks is contact, right? That's the first thing that they read is your name, and followed by, again, information about you, like your phone number, your email address. Make sure it's professional, right? And of course, if you have other resources to help them make a decision about you, right, I tell folks this is a great way to include, again, your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's, strong, well-developed already, right? When you are sending them, like if they see that link to your LinkedIn profile, that's an invitation that you are signaling to them and say, hey, if you're interested in my work, right, you want to learn more about me, check out my other work or more of my experience and knowledge over on LinkedIn. And they will click on that LinkedIn, right? They'll find you. If you are their top superstar, you're in the top 3, top 5, they will come look for you, right? And they're going to look at that LinkedIn profile to learn more about your skills and abilities, right? They want to know what else have you been up to? So again, that's an invitation you're sending them. So make sure that, again, your profile is completed. Now with your online applications and everything, I tell folks you don't necessarily, and for your safety, right, need to put your address on your resume. Remember, you're sending out your personal information to a lot of random people out there, strangers, people you'll never ever see and meet. And so I don't encourage putting your actual street address. I would not do that. I don't recommend that. If you want, you can put the city and state at most, but I don't recommend putting your actual physical address. So these are the different, again, examples of how you want to do it. Pro tip, again, let's just say if you are, you go by a different name, right? Maybe you have a middle name or, a name that you really enjoy, you prefer people to call you, but it's not your legal name. You might want to put quotations before and after in the middle of your name. So that way they understand this is my preferred name. So in this example, we have Mia, right? She prefers Kiara, right? So she might have something like that. But you still want to make sure that people understand that, because if you were called in to interview, they're going to look at the resume and go, what do we say, right? And they're probably going to get a better idea and go, oh, she prefers Kiara, or whatever name you want. Okay, so the next piece here, often people get kind of confused about, okay, following the contact, what do I need to write? Should I write a summary, or should I write my objective, right? Like, what do I put? And so if you are starting off as a young professional, let's just say if you're in high school, or maybe you're in your first year or two in college, right? You probably go with an objective, and that's really simple, right? And I'll show you what an objective is afterwards. It's just quickly stating, again, the position, company you're looking for, right? The opportunity. But for folks who are much further along, right, and maybe have some years of experience already, you should probably be aiming for a summary instead. A summary, again, is sort of this eye-catching statements that really tries to grab the reader's attention. And it helps them understand, what are you going to talk about throughout the rest of your resume, right? And here should be where you focus more about, again, summarizing that to help the reader understand, hey, if you select me, if you stay longer on this resume, you're going to learn about my ability and skills and all of this stuff that's needed for that job, right? So definitely I recommend for folks, before you even go back into tailoring, right, what you need to do is analyze the job description, study that job description. What is it that they want in their dream candidate? And they literally tell you that. They say, hey, these are the qualifications. We're looking for someone with these skill set, right? And what I recommend folks do is actually go back to the job description, circle, underline, star, put hearts, whatever it is, right? On keywords and terms that demonstrates the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you have. That's going to help them really quick see that you are the match, right? And what I would do is throughout my resume and my cover letter, I will weave those words in. So for example, right, let's just say if they say, hey, I want someone who's a great communicator, excellent communication skill, right, which is very popular. In my summary, I'm going to talk about how I'm a great, communicator. And then in my accomplishments later on throughout my resume, I'm going to demonstrate what communication looked like in my work. So for example, was I doing public speaking? Was I writing a lot, right? Those are all different forms of communication. So again, I want to make sure that they understand who I am. And the summary is a great way to tell them, hey, it's worth your time. Read more about me. I have exactly what you're looking for, right? And again, you probably want to aim for that. So here's an example, right? Empathetic and established teaching assistant with 3 years of experience in providing academic lessons, care, and behavior approaches to English and Spanish-speaking children between the ages of 5 and 10. In this sentence alone, I quickly capture the audience, my quick skill set, right? And that I'm able to provide. What is it that I'm able to do, right? Provide academic lessons, care to who? English and Spanish-speaking children, right? Of what ages? Again, 5 and 10. So now they already know just by this sentence what I have been able to do, right? That I'm going to bring to the table. Next, I go into experience in working with special needs children and maintaining their emotional well-being and safety in the classroom setting. Now I just told them, hey, I know how to work in different spaces, right? Like the classroom. And then I say, hey, I have extensive knowledge here of early childhood education, individual education plans, and extracurricular activities in remote learning environments. Again, something new that in this right now during this time about what I am able to do, right? I know how to work remotely. I can engage, right? So if I'm applying for this job, sounds like I'm applying for like a teaching related position, right? In this summary, they already know. I reset the stage and told them, hey, you're going to learn about my abilities to do this. So the goal is, again, to get them pumped up and excited. All right. Next part, now we're going to jump over to the objective. And again, these are for folks who are probably more, again, if you don't have a lot of skills and experience, but you probably want to aim for something like this, or again, it's going to really be about just clearly stating what it is that you're applying for. Now, you can use it, but I tell folks it's not the most effective. And that's because if you're submitting a cover letter already, you're already stating that. So you're just basically restating again in your resume. And when you have a lot of experiences, right, it's probably one of the first things that I tell folks to cut out because you're already stating it. They know you're applying for this position. You submitted your application for it. So it's redundant, right? But if you are, let's say, again, you don't have a lot of skills and experience, you're trying to fill up that one page, right? And you need to put an objective, then it's okay. Especially if, let's say, you're applying for multiple positions within the same company, right? An objective can be still very helpful for that. So whereas it can be just as simple as this one, seeking a behavioral interventionist position with amazing company in little city, and then state. Very clear, just tells them exactly what position, what company. Again, you can use this method too. It's a older form of writing a resume, but it's not the most effective. Because again, they don't know what you have to offer at the top, right? They just heard what you're interested in. All right. So here's the next part. Now comes your education certification, right? You can also include this here. This is where you state your institution, right? And the degrees that you have completed. Optional, you can also include relevant courses if you took in any courses, right? That's related or that would help the reader understand, again, what knowledge do you bring? So again, you want to put the names of the course. Do not put ABS 152, like the abbreviated form, right? They have no idea what ABS 152 is. For all I know, it could just be a class about comedy, right? So you want to make sure you identify the names of the course, right? Theory of, or, intro to, right? Or advanced, whatever it is. So having an education section is helpful because it helps them understand, like, what knowledge do you bring? Even if you are still currently working on that degree. So in this case, let's say if you're still working on that degree, typically you would also cite the month and year that you received the degree or you were awarded the degree. But if you're still, let's say, working on your degree or certification, you can still put the expected, completion or degree month and year if you wanted to. And that's totally fine. Because again, if you are the superstar, they want to know is, when are you ready to dedicate to us full time, right? And so that's totally okay. Now we go to your skills. And this is where a lot of people struggle, I think. They start struggling in this area because they don't know how to identify their skills. And there are 3 different types of skill set that really shines through in a resume, right? Again, skills including like tech, industry knowledge, right? They highlight, again, what is it that you know how to do, right? What relevant knowledge, abilities that you have to present to the reader. And so when you analyze that job description, again, you'll see that they identify some really good skills that they want. Remember, hiring managers, for the most part, like 99.9% of the time when they hire, they're hiring you based on your skills, knowledge, and abilities, right? Your proven fact that you can demonstrate this knowledge, abilities, again, and skill. So that's what you want to weave in. And there are 3 categories of it, right? There's technical or hard skills, right? And these are teachable abilities and knowledge that you need to perform a specific task or job, right? Usually think of hard skills as there are structure and rules to it, and you can't really break them. So for example, like calculus, right? You have to learn it. There are rules, formulas. You can't just make up a formula, right? And so these are some examples of those, like even being bilingual, learning, having an ability of a different language, right? Again, that's a hard skill. There are transferable skills, right? And skills that you use in most, like everyday, everybody's job, right, has it at some point in time. And so these are often known as people skills. And so those are, again, think of like skills in working with people, right? Problem solving, communicating, right? Leadership, teamwork, right? Those are all transferable skills. And what happens is that you've been developing these skills over time. You just don't realize that you're part of your toolkit. And so what you want to do is identify those skill set. And what you're doing over time is that you're actually learning these skills and you're getting better and better over time, right? You're mastering it. But it doesn't come up to, for some folks, as obvious because you do it so much you don't realize it's a skill. And I tell folks, if you don't know what your skills are, you need to do inventory checklists, right? Analyze what is it that you know how to do, right? That you can offer the employer right off the bat, and then identify what are skills you don't know how to do. You're like, geez, I just never developed that skills, or I never had the opportunity, or it wasn't part of my job description in the past, right? Identify the skills you would want to learn how to do, right? And now you identify the gap in your skills and start making plans to develop those skills. And then, of course, there are industry knowledge, right? There are certain skills or knowledge that are only specific to the industry or occupations. So, for example, whether it be like certain theories or approaches, right? There are specific industry knowledge. So a lot of folks often forget that that's also a skill set, right? It's the knowledge that you bring. And so when you're putting it on your resume, right? Again, analyze the job description one more time and circle those keywords and terms, right? If they say, hey, we want someone who's going to be a great problem solver, right? And I tell folks, your skills section, think of it as the setting the stage again, right? You're going to go on stage. They have to announce you, right? What would you want them to know about you? Right? And the skill sets the stage for that. The skills tells the reader, hey, you're going to learn about his or her ability to demonstrate this later on. So that way, again, it helps the reader make that connection and saying, hey, they have exactly what we're looking for. Let's continue reading. Okay, so just really quick, as we're thinking about skills, right, I wanted to highlight these are the best skills on a resume that a lot of employers are looking for. And this is from Indeed, right, like active listening, communication, right, computer skills, right, customer service, interpersonal skills, leadership, management, problem solving, time management, surprisingly, right, and transferable skills. So I tell folks, if you don't know what your skills are, go through each one of them, kind of get an understanding, have I demonstrated this? And if so, when was the last time I did that, right? When was the last time I demonstrated I was good at it? So if you're curious about it, I tell folks, start doing an inventory checklist so you know what is it that you have to offer right off the bat. The next part really quick also, because, we are in very unique times, right? Right now, 50% of the labor force, right? People who are currently working, 50% of workers right now in today's time need to be retrained, meaning new skills, knowledge, and ability is entering the workforce. And we actually have to retrain our workforce, right? A lot of folks need to learn new skill set because that's going to help you future-proof your career. If you've always known how to do one thing and one thing only, and you don't know how to do other things that's going to help you problem solve for tomorrow's challenges, it doesn't really set you for success. Because I tell folks, what's the one question that a lot of companies are questioning? ultimately is, again, can the work you be done that's being done by you, the current employee, be replaced by artificial intelligence, right? Can someone else do your job? Can a computer do your job better and faster, right? And so you have to demonstrate that you are not replaceable, right? And so right now there's projection for the top 10 skills by 2025. Right? And this is from the Future of Job Reports from the World Economic Forum, right? When they analyze and think about, okay, what are factors affecting the workforce? And what does this mean, right? If I'm a job seeker right now, what do I need to do to future-proof my career? I need to learn some of these skills. So that way, by the time those opportunities come, I'm more prepared because I've developed it and I'm good at it. So here are some really good ones. Again, problem solving, right? It's probably one of the most important skill set. And that's because companies have needs, right? They have a problem, and that's why they're hiring. They need help to support them. And so being analytical thinking, right? And being innovative, active learning, right? Critical thinking, right? Creativity, leadership, right? Technology, like I mentioned, comes out multiple times. Being resilient under stress, tolerance, and flexibility, right? Because we're now during the situation of COVID, right? Where a lot of folks have to jump and do different things that were not part of their job description originally, right? And so how to do it with sound reasoning and being flexible, right? And empathizing. And of course, you want to show that, you want to demonstrate that again through your current work. So that way by the year 2025 comes, you're more prepared. So something to keep in mind. Okay. Now we go into, I tell folks, we went over a good chunk of the beginning of again, this is about a third of the page down already, right? We're close to halfway through the first page. And this is now the experience. Hello, this is now I call it like the butter of your resume. This is the most important thing. If you're going to make any changes at any point in time, right, this is probably the one you want to do, because this is the part that tells the reader of your proof, your evidence of you demonstrating those knowledge, skills, and abilities. And again, your experience section here identifies your past experience, right, through what we call accomplishment statements. And so again, you want to weave that in. Again, these statements help the hiring managers understand, what did you actually do? Were you successful? And if so, what did it contribute to? Right? There are many ways in how you write it. Here are I would say the top 5 ways of writing it, right? That it's very across the board. I think most folks will agree. There's the CAR, which is the, challenge, action, results. There's the problem, which is very similar, right? Where you identify the problem, the actions and results you took. The STAR, situation, action, results, and the STAR, situation, task, action, results, and then XYZ, right? For the most part, if you're a young professional, again, you're within less than 5 years of experience, you will probably do the STAR method. And most people probably know the STAR method is probably easiest. For folks who are much further in their career, probably like 10 years out, to probably go more of a CAR-PAR method, because again, they've had more years in experience, and for them, it's very easy to quickly identify, like, okay, these were the challenges that I faced, is the steps I took, right, and the results that it led to. So I'm going to focus more on the STAR for today's session, just because, again, it looks like some folks are more, again, you're newer to writing your resume, you're trying to get an idea of it, then I would say start with the STAR method. It's probably the easiest. And if you're wondering, why do I need to write it like this, right? Remember, it's a 1-page, typically 1 or 2-page resume. And so you don't have a lot of space. It's not like an essay you're writing. And trust me, do not write an essay. Nobody wants to read that, right? So this helps you keep your sentences in a very clear and concise way. And also, it prepares and prep you for the interview, essentially. So how do you write them, right? So here's a breakdown, okay? So again, you accomplishment statements, it brings values. It helps them understand, what did you actually do? So you start with the action verb, right? And there's if you just type in Google action verbs for resume, you can see a bunch of different types of action verbs out there, like different words for, different areas. Like, let's say if you did teaching a lot, if you were communicating a lot, if you were doing, let's just say finance more, right? There's so many different types of action verbs. And what also is helpful, again, is pulling those action verbs from that job posting. Remember, your job posting, that job description is literally the blueprint to your cover letter and resume. And so, but one thing to keep in mind, I tell folks, is you want to avoid like the overuse of certain action verbs. So for example, and here's a very overused one, like assist, helped, responsible for, tasked with, duties include, right? These have been so overused in resume that they don't actually help you. They hurt you, because the hiring managers have heard this all too many times, right? And like I tell folks, it doesn't put an image in the reader's mind about what did you actually do, right? It's very passive. And so you want to avoid those action verbs, right? Instead of saying, let's just say if you teach, right? Yes, you can usually teach, but I wouldn't say help children, right? Because again, help, they know you were there. They know you were there to help, right? But how did you help? Did you facilitate? Did you, communicate, right? Those are going to be the more action verbs that's going to be more helpful. Now you want to go into context, right? The context is like the details, the good stuff, right? This is where you actually demonstrate to the reader about what was the purpose of you doing this? What were you trying to solve, right? This is where you can identify the population, the demographics, right? The purpose of the work that you're trying to do, that you were responsible for, the issues. And again, incorporating those keywords, right? And when you can, you want to really quantify it. This is what stands out, right? So if you brought in money, if you increase revenue by a certain percentage, right? Or if you met X amount of students, or whatever the case may be, right? Numerical value, you want to do that. That helps the reader understand, again, that type of impact that you're making. And so oftentimes, right, what I see is that folks actually do this a lot in their resumes. They would write the action verb and then the context, or not really the full context, just half of it. Right? And again, it doesn't help the reader make a decision because it doesn't demonstrate that you're successful. It just says that you did something, but we have no idea what it is. So what the best part to do, and when you're writing your resume, again, this is of everything you're going to learn today, do this part, right? Put results, right? And that's part you lead them into the result because of your efforts, right? What did it actually lead to? Because you did this, what did it contribute to, right? Did you meet this purpose that your boss expected you to do? Right? And this is where I would use language such as resulted in, lead to, contributed towards, right? In order to do this, or expanded, raised, right? You want to use positive outcomes, right? And that's what's going to help you stand out. Oftentimes people don't do this part, right? Because they don't see that their work is contributing to a positive outcome. So they don't see that. They don't own that, and they don't write that. But if you don't do that, right, then again, the reader doesn't have an inclination to understand, right, that you are successful. They have no reason to justify, why should I hire you? Why should I call you into an interview? I don't know if you're successful. And they can't assume. Remember, the hiring managers can't assume, I think he or she was successful. No, they can't do that, right? They can only take what you presented on hand on this resume. So you have to, I tell folks, spoon feed it to the reader, right? You are spoon feeding to them so that way they know exactly what did you do. So that's what you want to start doing, engaging in. So quickly, what does it actually look like? Here's an example, really. So let's just say if you watch children a lot, right? Just say you work for the after school program, right? And your responsibility, right? And this is what I tell folks, for each experience that you have, you should identify what are the 4 to 6 very important responsibilities that my boss expected me to do. Write them down in one column like this. And then on the next column, then I tell folks, now turn that, right, convert that into an accomplishment statement. Write down what did you actually do to demonstrate that you're meeting the needs of that expectation, right? You're addressing that expectation. So in this case, we see here is that you have watched children, right? In the next part, now you have the accomplishment that you would actually put in your resume. Supervise children between the ages of 5 to 10 years old during recess, lunch, and after school on the playground to foster positive friendship, empathy, and teamwork skills, right? That's a very clear and concise way of quickly wrapping up to let the reader know, what did I do? I supervised the children. For who? 5 to 10 years old, right? When? How often? During school, lunch, recess, and after school. In order to do what? Foster growth of positive friendship, empathy, and teamwork. In a very clear and concise way, right? And of course, you can always add a little bit more, but I would say, this is just an example. Let's just say the principal expected you to say, hey, I want you to make sure you talk to the parents about this, right? Talk to parents. That was the expectation. What did I actually do, right? Now I'm writing it as an accomplishment statement. Communicate with 20 plus parents weekly on their children's daily growth, progress, and challenges, resulting in a strong rapport with parents and contributing to a high trust among parents in the local region, right? Again, now the reader's able to understand what are you actually doing, right? What are you talking to parents about? How many parents are you talking to, right? And because you talk to these parents, what did it lead to? That's what you want to convey. Again, those results, right? And that's what's going to help separate those who write their resume, right, for the folks who apply to the folks who actually go to the interview. And that's what I encourage everyone to do, is write it into an accomplishment statement. All right. Hang in there, Ty. We're almost there. We're halfway through already. So now, right, again, those are the bare bones, but you want to also include, right, for folks, let's just say if you're like, hey, Eva, I have no experience and I don't have a lot of jobs, right, and I'm trying to really build my resume, right, I would say now's a good time to start including like projects, right? Projects is things that you've done to demonstrate your success as well, and you will still write it in the same format style, right? You will quickly summarize the purpose of this project that you worked on, right, and about 2 to 3 very strong accomplishment statements. So here's an example of a research one, right? Let's just say if you help a researcher or maybe in your local community, right, you identify the position, and notice I will only bold the position because that's what I want the reader to focus on. I don't want the reader to focus on anything else, right? You don't want to bold everything throughout your resume either. Bolding and capitalizing very heavily is like shouting at the reader, and we don't want to do that. We want to be a very subtle approach. And so you can quickly summarize, the project, and then again identify 2 to 3 very strong accomplishments demonstrating again your skills, knowledge, and ability, and put the time frame. This method also applies to again like community services that you were part of, volunteer work, club leadership, right? Those type of engagements as well. Remember, for the most part, like and you want to check with your state too, but out here, at least in California, your future boss is not going to care if you're paid or not. They don't care. When they're hiring managers, when they're looking at your resume, they want to know, again, your knowledge, skills, and abilities. Your skills, right? They don't care if you were paid or if this was free work or a side hustle, right? To them, that doesn't matter. For the most part, they want to know is, what did you do? Who and what did you do it for? Were you successful, right? Did you problem solve? Did you fix it, right? Were you good at it? And that's what you want to aim for, is telling them that, again, you have these skills and knowledge, and it doesn't come from just books, right? It doesn't come from just paid positions. It could be internships, it could be volunteering, even shadowing. Let's just say you shadow a professional, right? Or you did a 3-month project, or even a 1-month project, right? Those are all still skills, experience, and knowledge that you bring to the table. Now we go to the science of it. Now we go into formatting, right? Now, there are formatting structures and guidelines. So for grammar, we would never use pronouns. So I, me, my, his, hers, right? They, them. We wouldn't use that. We would avoid, again, articles like a and the, right? And avoid using abbreviations. If you are going to use abbreviations, right, you will spell it out the first time, and then, you can abbreviate it and then identify it a few times throughout the rest of your resume if you wanted to. But I wouldn't abbreviate a bunch of things without identifying what it is. Margins, again, so this is the white spaces all around your resume, right? So again, you start at 1 inch and then you go smaller if needed, right? So I would start at 1 inch, write everything first, right? And then if I see that, I'm 2 lines over, then I'll start moving my margins around, like 2.9, 0.8, 0.6, and again, a 0.5 is the smallest. Font style, right? Or the font that you're using. Again, you can use standard fonts. Any of these are fine. And if you do have one that you prefer, that's totally okay. Just make sure that, again, when you are submitting your resume, right, and you're sending it over electronically or you're printing it, that, you print it from, or you send it off as a PDF. It helps retain all that hard work in terms of the font and stuff. Otherwise, if you send it off as a Word doc, remember, on their side, on their computer, they may not have that cool font you got, right? So it's going to look all gibberish. So I tell folks, just keep it simple. That's your goal, right? And you should be fine, and send off as a PDF. Font sizes, your name, right? That big information at the beginning should be between size 18 to 22 size font. And then the body of the font should be between size 10 and 12, 10 being the smallest. Most people usually run at 10, 10.5, 11, right? Or 11.5, and that's totally okay. The order of your resume should be in reverse chronological order. So the most recent experience to the oldest experience in each of the sections, like from your experience to your volunteering, right? All of those stuff. So again, Pro tip really quick, you want to use the same font style, right, and sizes on your resume as you would for your cover letter. It should feel like, for consistency, it should feel like the same person who wrote this resume is the same person who wrote the cover letter, right? It should not be two different like font style structures. Otherwise, it's going to feel very different. So, and again, when you send it off as PDF. So here's a good rule of thumb, right? 2/3 of the page down when you're looking at your resume, right? Did it feature the most important things that needs to answer the question, does this person have the skill set and knowledge and abilities that we want in our new candidate, right? Are they reflecting that? Usually 1/3 of the page down, like towards the bottom of the page, is like FYI to the reader. But 2/3 of the page down, that's high prime real estate, right? That's the part that's most important because that's where they spend most of their time and energy when they're evaluating, should I read on, right? Of course, and I tell folks, no templates, no colors, no photos, and boxes, right? If you're using templates out there, I tell folks, I know they look really cool. Some of them fantastic, right? Like infographic style, right? Images. Those are totally cool too. I get it. But I would have two different types of resume. I would have a traditional style, font style, right? No, nothing fancy, just traditional style. You should be fine with that one as a backup. And I would utilize that more primarily when I'm submitting my application online. And that's because a lot of online application utilizes what we call an application tracking system, right? ATS for short. And what it is a software program that reads the resume for keywords, terms, right? And we don't know what those keywords and terms are, but usually they revolve around, again, usually if you look at the job description, you get a good idea of what they're looking for, right? And so when you're sending off like your resume and it's on this template style, right? Those words don't get picked up very easily. It's actually harder. And so you want to make sure you use a regular traditional style. But let's just say if I'm hanging out and once things are over, right, you're like, hey, I'm going to go to a networking event, I'm going to a career fair, or, someone asked me to send me their resume, right? That's when I would send a nice, template style or, color one if you wanted to, right? But again, or design look of it. And that's okay. That's more for, again, when you know there's a face you're going to send it to, right? And you want to show them a little bit more creative side, and that's okay. But if you are sending off, you have no idea who's going to read this resume, right? Then I would say keep it safe, go with traditional style, and you should be okay. They should both convey the same information. But I would avoid the colors particularly, and that's because you don't know if the person who's reading the resume is colorblind. You have no idea if they're reading this on a gray, black and white, or monitor. You have no idea. So what I tell folks, you take more risk by doing more of the creative stuff with your resume, right? It doesn't mean like you get penalized as in they'll never read your resume, but I tell folks it doesn't increase your odds either, right? And so I would save more for the design creative ones for in person. If you're going to send it to someone, they say send me your resume, and it goes directly to their inbox, like directly to an email that they're going to look at, versus like the AI, right? The application tracking system. So that's what I would aim for. So we're wrapping up right here now towards the end. So thank you all so much for coming to hang out. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, feel free to plug them in. I'm happy to answer. But besides that, I hope that gives you a good walkthrough about, again, how to write an effective resume. If you're going to do anything, whether it be writing your resume or updating your resume, the most important piece is those accomplishment statements, like I mentioned earlier, because those are evidence and proof that you actually did what you say you were going to do, right? You actually demonstrated that. And that's far more important than, again, how it looks or right? So you want to really aim for that. So if you have any questions, you can pop them in chat. I'm happy to answer any. Kalia says, really quick, very helpful. Thank you, Kalia, for coming by. Appreciate that. Kevin's like, hey, you're awesome. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Thank you so much for coming by. Really appreciate that, bud. So I hope this was helpful for y'all. On Wednesday, I'm going to be doing Meet the Pros. So if you want to learn more about different careers out there, I'm having different folks this month on Wednesdays. Starting at 6, we're going to be doing some interviews with other professionals, learning about like talent acquisitions, different careers out there. So, come hang out with us at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Marissa had a question. It says, does this mean when it comes to those accomplishments, it's okay to go over the one-liner? Yes, absolutely. Right. Okay. So what I think what people get fixated on is this part where like I do a bullet point, right? And then it goes across the one side from one page to the other in one line. If your accomplishment goes over to 2 lines, that's totally okay. And same with a resume. You can have, typically standard is if you have 10 years of experience or less, it should be all in one page, right? And you're like, oh, how do I get the most important things, right? And again, evaluate the job description. So that way you understand, right? What is it that they want? They need to know about me, right? To make a decision. The second page, if you wanted to include it, and that's okay. I tell folks, you can include a second page. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Especially if you have a lot of experience. But the first page should feature the most important piece for them to make a decision. Second page is like FYI to the reader only. It's like, oh, I'm part of my community, or oh, I did this presentation, or I did this talk, right? But it's not the deciding factor. But it will still weave to help the reader understand, again, knowledge, skills, and abilities. 𝗘𝗙𝗙𝗘𝗧𝗜𝗍 says, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. Sharon says, oh, this is awesome. No problem. Thank you, Sharon, for coming by. Appreciate that. And again, you want to make sure, and so most people, when they're writing or updating their resume, I tell folks, on average, it takes about 5 to 7 drafts until people actually feel really good about their content. They feel good about their accomplishment. They understand the skills, knowledge, and abilities. Because remember, this resume, it's setting you up to prepare about what you're going to talk about in the interview, right? If they selected you, what would you talk about? This is what you're going to talk about, right? And so you want to be able to make it easier for yourself. Again, make it easy so that way you have exactly what you're going to talk about. You know what you're going to talk about. So thanks for your help, of course. So what I encourage everyone to do is do the 20-second rule test. Because on average, most hiring managers spend between 6 to 12 seconds looking at a resume, and they already concluded their decision about whether or not you should be on the pile to interview. So you should definitely do a 20-second rule test, right? Give it to someone and ask them, do you know what I have to offer right off the bat? Do you know my knowledge, skills, and abilities? And if they can say yes to that, right, then great. But if they have no idea, they're like, I don't know what you actually do, that means time to revise those accomplishment statements. Versus, can you talk more about the skills inventory check? What's a process you've gone through? Yes. So what I recommend for folks is like when you are writing you're thinking about your skills, right? Like I mentioned, you want to do an inventory checklist. And I tell folks, identify what are some of the skills that you know how to do. If someone asks you, if your boss came to you and said, I need to know what are the 5 things you know how to do, what would they be? Right? What's the most important skills that you're good at doing, right? That people rely on you to do, or that they know that you know how to do it, right? And then again, I would go identify like the categories of what they are. So for example, it's the computer skills, right? What are they? Do you know how to do Excel, PowerPoint, right? Break it down, right? Do you know how to do, like in those people skills, transferable skills, right? When it comes to working with people, what do I know how to do that I'm good at, right? That I do a nice, decent job, right? So is it, for example, teamwork? Do I work on teams a lot? Right? Am I the one who's leading oftentimes, right? Putting the agenda out, right? Maybe that's more of a leadership role I'm often in. Or again, you want to identify some of those that's again, maybe in your industry, right? I tell folks when you're looking at your skill set, right? And you look at the current roles that you have, or that's also in line with other folks, right, in your industry. And then look at the job description. You'll see that there are common skill set that happens over and over again throughout most of those job description. And I would go through that list and go, okay, this is a bank of skills that, my profession or the profession I want to go to, right, has a lot of. Circle and highlight the ones you do have, great, weave them into your resume. The ones you don't have, now you identify a gap in your skill set. Ones you have not yet developed, or again, that you don't know how to do, right? And then start making plans to develop those. There's a lot of ways to develop new skills. I tell folks, you do not have to wait until you get a new job till you do that. There's a lot of online course learning right now. And I tell folks, volunteering or doing side projects, right, in your community is a great way to develop new skills really fast. So that's the process I usually would go through. I would look at job description and again, okay, in my profession, right, among myself and other people, what are the common skills that people want, right? And identify what they are and identify what you have from the list, right, of generated banks of terms and knowledge, and then weave them into your own, right? Make sure you show it off in your resume. Kevin goes, I missed the beginning portion of this talk. Is the objective still relevant for resumes today? So thanks for asking that, Kevin. No, actually, again, if you are starting off, like let's say you're in high school or maybe your first 2 years in your college, right? You can use an objective. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't recommend that because, again, you're already stating that you're interested in the position. So, again, objective is really clear. It says something like seeking X position with X company and city and state. It's very straightforward. But I don't recommend this because, again, it's very flat. It doesn't help the reader make a decision about you. It doesn't set the stage, right? And, again, if you're already submitting your cover letter, you're already stating that. So again, I would skip the objective, right? Cross that out and go to a summary. If you're a working professional already, maybe you have, 2, 3, 5+ years of experience, you should be doing more of a summary. A summary summarizes what is it that you have, what skills, knowledge, and abilities that you bring to the table, right? And it sets the stage for the rest of the resume. Versus, are there other system job seekers should know or be aware of along with ATS? Yes, the human people. So really, you want to be able to, again, like if you're applying for a job, right? I tell folks, you should definitely get an understanding of for that industry that you're in, like what's the norm or typical process or even within the company, right? When you talk to hiring managers more and more, depending on how it is, for example, like big company, let's just say Google, right? Facebook, big like top 500 companies, Fortune 500 companies, or even 100 typically. The bigger the organizations, the more likely they'll lean to the system like that because, again, they don't have time to go through a stack of resumes that are unqualified, right? So they're going to rely on ATS, right, to help filter out people who don't qualify. They only want to look at from that stack of resumes the ones that do qualify. Right? So even for the state, federal job boards, right, they may use it, again, bigger organizations. Whereas let's just say a smaller organization, a small, less employees, or companies are startup, if they don't have those budget, right, then they're not going to be using ATS. They're going to rely on the, hiring manager, the human eye, right? And so I tell folks, I wouldn't rely when you're submitting your application just on a resume. Relying on a resume, again, doesn't help you because it's just one piece, right? It's only one marketing document to help, again, tell the story about your accomplishment from your current and past. But it doesn't tell them your interests. And that's where the cover letter comes in, and you want to really articulate your interests and why you are a better fit for the position because of your skills and knowledge. And that's what the cover letter does. And both of them go through ATS. But I would say that typically you want to be able to submit both. You should be, unless you're told otherwise. And you should be, again, if it's a small organization, I would try to find like the hiring manager, try to connect with them to learn more about the position. So that way, when I am writing my resume and cover, I have a very understanding what they're looking for. I'm going to show it off in my resume and cover letter. But yeah, great question there. And I tell folks, you definitely want to, again, go through multiple drafts, ask, a friend, a colleague, a mentor, say, hey, can you look over my resume? Is there something that stood out for you, right? Or I would ask them, do the little pop quiz, like, what are the 5 skills that I demonstrated halfway through? And can they list them to you, right? And if you're able to do that, great. If you're not able to, then again, that's where there's a mismatch here, right? We need to move the most important things to the top. Fernando says, hi, I'm changing career from business development to programming. Can you help me with my resume? Hey, Fernando, how are you? Welcome. What is it? I'm happy to share this presentation with folks as a PDF. So if you want this information, stick around, follow the page on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll post it up so that way folks can, or this video again, and I'm happy to share with folks. And for the folks who are live with me, feel free to send me an email over here, and I'm happy to quickly give a review, give you some feedback. I won't be writing them, I tell folks, but you can write them. But I'd be happy to give you that 20-second, kind of review, and let you know, like, hey, this is what works, right? Or what's important. Because remember, in each of your jobs that you held, you've all probably done a lot of work and just don't realize it, right? But you have to kind of sit down, reflect, and think, okay, what's the most important ones that will help the reader make a decision about me? What's the skill set, knowledge, and ability that I'm trying to tell the reader I know how to do, right? And did you do it well in your accomplishment statements? Otherwise, I tell folks, you may say, I'm a great person for the job, but if you didn't articulate it well, then they miss the opportunity, right? We miss an opportunity here to tell them that. So I would say, yes, absolutely. You want to make sure that you really get a chance to, again, rewrite those accomplishment statements, right? Results is very important. That separates everyone else from saying, I'm interested, I submitted my application, to I'm interested, and I'm going to the interview. And so you want to really, again, make sure you write down, have very good accomplishment statements, because that's what separates everyone else. Other thoughts, questions? Again, I'm happy to hang out for another minute or two, but thank you all so much. I really appreciate everyone's time. And again, on Wednesday, we're going to do Meet the Pros. We're having our first guest speaker, Jennifer Lee, not related, come and talk to and share with us about, she actually works in HR and can give us a better idea about, what employers look for and hiring managers look for when they look at a job description, when they look at candidates, and, and how do they decide on who they're calling in to also, talk about, the resume portion. But she's also going to talk about her career and her path and how does she get to that point. So again, for folks, whether you are, you're new to your job, or you're changing careers, or you just want to come hang out and learn more about different careers out there, feel free to come hang out with us on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Same links as this. Great. Oh, thank you, Fernando. Appreciate it. You're awesome. Thanks for hanging out. And again, I'll post this video back on the live stream on replay. So if folks are like trying to go back, they're like, oh, Eva talked about the skill section, or she talked about the summary, right? Again, you can replay it and feel free to utilize any of these resources that I'm sharing. So if there are no questions, again, thank y'all so much. I really appreciate everyone's time and energy. It was really cool just to be able to connect with you all and share a little bit more about, again, how to write a resume, right? How to future-proof your career, essentially, right? When you're thinking about, again, the skills, experience, and knowledge, and of course, right, how to make you stand out by 2021. If you're out there applying for a job, right, what do you need to write? What do you need to incorporate? All right. Thank you, everyone, so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys next time on Wednesday. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Y'all have a good morning or afternoon for some of you East Coast and Central Time folks. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.